minutes, Rob.
I'm going to report it as well, just so we have it.
Good thinking. Always a good idea. Okay, we're just about 1 o'clock, so I'm going to connect us with the Facebook page, and then Rob, just give me 1 minute and we'll get started right away.
You got it.
Okay, so I believe, Rob, we are all set to go.
Perfect.
Okay, so I believe, Rob, we are all set to go. Okay, so Rob, I'm just going to make sure your screen, can you see the full screen there to go?
I see the full screen, yes.
Okay. Let's just go back to where that is for me. Okay, there we go. All right, welcome everyone to Core Pursuit. We're extremely happy to have everyone here. We have an exciting topic to talk about. Rob, I'm going to let you fill everybody in. What exactly are we talking about today for Core Pursuit? And I guess before I do that, for anybody who's joining us on Facebook today, we're really excited to have you taking part. Core Pursuit is an extension of the full coaching that we already do. So Kathleen Black Coaching Consulting runs team-specific coaching for real estate agents, mortgage brokers. We run training in various brokerages that cover all facets of building a mega team in real estate or building your real estate business to a level of high production. So Core Pursuit came from the realization of years and years and years of coaching, 10 years full-time just on team-specific real estate coaching, that it's really the communication skills, it's leveraging our unique ability, it's our mindset that gives the most impact to the systems and the tools that we work with agents to have teams that are selling 100 homes a year, 200, 300, 400, some selling 800,000 homes plus per year. So Core Pursuit is focused on 3 very specific things: mindset, communication, and leadership. And we have had the beautiful ability to share Core Pursuit publicly over the last 2 months. And we have today and one more day, April 4th, I believe, 2 weeks from now, where we will have our final public Core Pursuit, and it will go into a private program with our coaching clients. So anybody does have access. You don't need to be in the real estate industry. And Rob, I'm going to let you explain what we're going to be talking about today.
So I think that's a perfect lead in. I think that most of the topics that we have incorporated with Core Pursuit doesn't just lend itself to the real estate world. We really try to broaden that perspective and reach out to people in any industry or any aspect of their life. And today I'm excited. This is a program that we run as a one-day seminar, and we've condensed it down for Core Pursuit today, talking about culture. And your environment, your culture is extremely important, and it's ever-changing. So I think it's really important to be able to gauge what that culture is at any given time. And should you realize that it's beginning to become toxic or it needs a change, we're going to talk about some of the ways that, first of all, you gauge that culture, and then you move into implementing change and going through that change process. Because I really, really think that your culture is directly related to your success, because if you fall off the wheel, culture alone can really essentially implode your business.
Yeah, there's a quote, I didn't have it up today, but it's basically along the lines of culture eats systems for breakfast. So if you're looking to systemize or be efficient, and that's what this is all about, right? We're bringing you this mindset because we know, working with the top players, the top superstars in our industry, they do have strong cultures. They are looking to give back. They're looking to contribute. They're looking to learn. They're looking to grow. So profit is a byproduct of offering more value. And when we invest in ourselves, in our leadership, our communication skills, our mindset, we can offer more value to the public. So culture is an indicator for you. If you're a team leader or you're within a team, and all of us really work in teams. Again, our family is a team, hopefully. A good one or a bad one, it's a team. So those of us who work in teams, culture is a great indicator for you of what are the underlying values and mindsets that are really running the show. Because you can implement as many systems as you want. Those systems, strategies, and tools will only be 20% of your success. In a team or organizational setting, 80% is going to come from, again, those values and cultural norms. As a team or organization becomes bigger, the successful ones are self-governing. And the hard part for a lot of people to understand is that the unsuccessful ones are also self-governing, because the culture and the beliefs about that environment are really regulating your performance in all instances. It's vital to us being successful in any facets of our lives to really look around us and say, what is the culture? What are the associations around me? And are they impacting me for success, or are they impacting me for struggle, for failure, for challenge? Where is my energy going? Do I ever get to the point where I create and contribute, which is where my maximum benefit is going to come from? So today, I know obviously, Rob, we're talking about some of the signals more for when culture has maybe gone wrong, right? So I'm going to let you kind of go in, and obviously we'll flow with this together. So super excited. And you, I guess, sorry, I have the slides. So I'll let you prompt me. And Core Pursuit has 3 different components. The first is core belief. We're on that right now. Growth mindset calls. Anybody who's included in this as a coaching member gets access to this. Again, if you're hitting hurdles, you're hitting parts of your team where you're trying to grow and contribute to culture, these tools are vital. I know Rob and myself have invested hours and hours and thousands upon thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, to be able to have these tools and bring them to our clients. I could have easily said, hey, I'm a systems coach. I'm a conversion coach. I'm a goals budgets coach. I could have left it at all that, but that wasn't enough to get my clients where they needed to be. And we want to make sure you have access to these tools. Core belief is going to give you access to the tools that we've had the years of investment with when you need it, without having to spend, again, $10, $20, $30,000, travel all over the place, and the time to be able to access those tools that you really need for your business. Core focus is where we're going to get our mind to that quiet place where we can disconnect from, the busyness of our mind and our body, and kind of have that meditation, that visualization. And these aren't soft skills. 2 top things correlated with high entrepreneurial success are focused thought or meditation and exercise, right? Because they create highly focused, engaged thinking, strategic thinking. They allow us to get away from those tactical, everyday difficulties and situations that take our time and energy, and they get us to the big picture. Our health, our relationships, our success rely on having some form of meditation, visualization, and focused thought, even if it's just for your health alone. If you don't see the connection yet to business, so be it. You're not going to be great in business if your health is suffering. I think all of us know what it can feel like to be tired, to be burnt out, to try to drudge through one day after another. It's very, very difficult. If we're not resetting ourselves, our filter, we're not going to get where we want to go. And that's where core focus comes into play. As we move into a private coaching program, this is going to be something where our clients get access, actually, Rob, to custom visualization meditation on a weekly basis. And then there'll be a library of that available to you. It's just time to block in and unplug. It's all about you, right? That's what that's about. And Core Awakening is for our beautiful morning miracle readers and everyone else who believes in getting up earlier and setting your day before your day decides to set you up for whatever it feels like it's going to hit you with. And that is a wake-up call. There's 3 times you can choose from, Rob. Are they set, the times yet? I don't know them.
No, I think we're putting it out there to see what the best ones are.
Yeah, I know I said to Andy, like the 5 a.m., 6 a.m. He said, who wakes up at 5 a.m.? A lot of my clients do. So 5
well, I know you do.
Yeah, 6 a.m. or 7. Yeah, I need that time ahead of my day. I can't do what I need to do without it, for sure. So wake up call, inspirational message, and a lot of them will be with Rob. I'm going to sneak in there sometimes just because it's what I like to do. It'll be fun for me. So you might get a surprise with some messages for myself, maybe Andy, who knows, as well. Okay, so let's get into talking about culture.
That's just a funny little comment. We can move ahead.
You don't want to say it? Okay, so I want you to find a bold and innovative way to do everything exactly the same way it's been done for 25 years. It's not a funny comment. It's a realistic comment, and it's coaching 101. Kathleen, I want you and Andy or your company to show us how to have, double our income or double our team, and we want to recruit. We want the best systems. But you know what? I think we found a way to do it better and quicker. I don't think we have to change anything we're doing now that we've been doing for the last 3 years. I think it's going to double our business this year. All of us get in this, right? For sure. Ask Andy how many times I say this to him. I want to be able to do all these speaking engagements, and I want to be able to do, write a book, and I want to be able to do Core Pursuit every week. I want to do all these things, but I still want to be able to coach all of my clients, have a life and have children and exercise 11 times a week. It's not, we all try it, but it's not really realistic. So obviously this relates to culture by being able to understand that there are challenges and there's growth and it's messy and all the good stuff comes on the other side, which we definitely know. I think it's an important start, Rob. Good pick.
So today we're gonna really quickly just touch on the team mentality. I want to take people back to a couple of the questions that they originally ask themselves before getting into that team mentality and the broader spectrum of knowing that we're always involved in a team. And Kathleen's already touched upon that. In our entire life, in every aspect of our life, you can see it as a team. And so we're going to touch on that. And then I'm going to move into culture. We're going to gauge culture and talk about the effective ways to change if we so choose. And I think it's really important at this point in time to say that when we talk about culture, it's not just about a CEO or a team leader or somebody like that. Your culture is really effectively every single person, including your clients and the outer world, that in the way that they perceive you. So that's really important to know, that this whole conversation goes from the top all the way down to the bottom and it encompasses absolutely everyone.
Absolutely.
So for me, team means together everyone achieves more, and I can't stress that enough. And I'd like to start out by 2 questions that you've obviously asked yourself prior to becoming a part of a team. Was, why did you want to be part of a team? And what are the benefits to being that team? You've obviously asked yourself that at some point in time. You came up with an answer and you decided to move forward. Why is that important? Because I think when we start to realize that things are changing, we have to check in with ourselves constantly and ask, have I changed? Is there something that I'm doing different? Is there something that I want to do different? And you constantly have to assess yourself and be honest with yourself in saying, am I a good team member? Because if I'm not, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It doesn't mean that there's a problem. It just means that maybe it's time for a change for the betterment of yourself and the betterment of the team itself or the organization that you're involved with. And self-awareness and self-reflection is in there because we're going to talk about it constantly. If you've joined us in any other core belief programs, you're going to constantly hear it from me. I think it's one of the most important parts of life in general. We need to check in and we need to take responsibility for our own processes and the way that we deal with absolutely everything in our life. So that's really important.
Yeah. And I think the self-awareness and self-reflection when things are going good as well. It was funny, just by fluke, I had my quote book out this morning. One of them was, life improves slowly and goes wrong fast, and only catastrophe is clearly visible, by Edward Teller. And I think it's really important that for a lot of the business owners I work with, business leaders and teams, sometimes it's so easy to see what's going wrong. It's so easy to beat ourselves up that something didn't go right. But when you practice Kaizen, which we believe in, which is small incremental daily improvements, sometimes you're cycling up and it can be so consistent, which is the most healthy growth you can have. But it can feel so slow and it can feel stagnant, because you get one thing done and all of a sudden you face a hurdle for the next thing and it feels like problem after problem. But really what you've done is you're actually going up step after step and you're cycling up. and you can't really see the movement, but you're cycling up and it can be difficult to see. So together, again, everyone achieves more. And the self-awareness of, you know what have we solved now that we didn't have solved maybe 6 months ago is just as important as what haven't we solved now that was a problem 6 months ago. I think the indicators are when it's the same problem again and again, that's a pretty big warning sign. It's a pretty big indicator that we have an actual obstacle on our hands, or there might be a cultural problem. We're not efficient together as a team. But when they're different problems and they're building and they're dominoing, that can actually be quite a sign of success and growth that people really overlook.
And this last part on here, I usually pose a question, and after asking what the biggest complaint is to thousands of people, it never comes down to this. We always get complaints about leadership or communication, all that kind of stuff. So I ask people to constantly ask yourself, what is it that you can do to make the situation better? Because your day starts with you and it ends with you, and everything in the middle is about you. So you have the choice when you go to the office whether you're going to have a terrible day or you're going to deal with, pardon my French, like the bull crap that goes on and things like that. So you get to choose, am I going to deal with that, or am I going to be better than that? And am I going to do everything I can in a positive way to help this organization or this team become successful? So I always say that the ball is truly in your court. So if you're dealing with issues, look within yourself and how you can get out of those issues.
Yeah, and how much is the drama, the complaining, the victim, how much is it not only costing you, how much is it costing the team? Because I know for our team, like I can speak for myself, I mean, we've had massive growth over the last year, much quicker than we anticipated. I'm the first one to say it's taken its toll at times. I mean, for sure, my energy levels, my health, there's been times where I'm like, oh my goodness. But I think the most important thing is when a team has a big vision, a big why, a big goal, and you're really committed to it, you literally don't have time for the complaints, the energy, the victim, the blaming. There's literally no time for it. It gets pushed out so quickly in a productive culture because everyone is unbelievably aware that if we spend any more time harping on this instead of solving it, we're in big trouble. Like we've committed ourselves to outcomes here. And I personally, I can't afford to commit my time to that. And I think it's important to be aware in successful teams, if you're not all speaking the same language. And when I say language, I'm not just saying, English, obviously, or French or German or whatever, or Spanish, whatever you're speaking. I'm talking about when you're not seeing what you're saying from the same lens. So those who have coached together for years, who read the same books, who go to training, who are connected with mindset, understand each other a lot more. Because I can say when you're in a culture that's very success driven, I know that if people around me didn't understand me in a team environment, they could see me as being harsh when really it's, I'm not blaming you, I'm not blaming me, I'm saying we need to get this solved, what's the issue? And there's no emotions. And I know personally it can take a while for people to really believe that there's no emotion behind it. It's not like there's a positive emotion of wanting to get things done, but it's not an anger or blame. It's just, okay, great, like we don't need to do that here. And it can take people off guard. So sometimes people aren't used to a productive, efficient environment because it can feel like, well, wait, don't we need to talk about this? And don't we need to justify? And don't we need to, figure out who's to blame here? Who cares? Who cares? Who has time for it? Figure out what went wrong, learn from it, and move on. And maybe it sounds harsh, but I can honestly say, there's no way we could build or do anything without that mindset. So I don't know, Rob, if you agree. I just think it's important. Sometimes it doesn't look the way we thought it would look, maybe.
And I agree wholeheartedly. And the only thing I would add there is that people often don't see it as a choice, but it truly is a choice. You have that choice to make, whether you go left or you go right. And I know it's a weird situation when you're talking about things in that manner, but you truly, if you can see it as having a choice, you can make your day and your production so much better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how empowering is choice versus feeling, forced to do something, for sure. Go.
So very quickly on our, I'm not sure who's here that joined us on our very first core belief, but we talked about leadership, and these things here are 3 leadership qualities. simply, I tell everyone, ask yourself these things constantly. Check in with yourself. Are you someone who others want to work with? Are you listening and communicating effectively in a non-judgmental way?
Mm-hmm.
Because in that way, you can move forward a lot quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And are you currently making other people around you better? And that's not just colleagues. It's not, it could be your boss. It could be friends. It could be your mother or father. It can definitely be clients. Are you making the people around you in your circle better people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're constantly looking for what type of team do I want to work with, or what's my ideal partner, or how do I want my children to be, right? So it's like constantly writing all these things out. I know in the personal development world, you know, writing all these things out for what we want to come to us. And I know when I work with clients, and some people don't realize that I do a lot of work with personal development. And sometimes for my clients, the most important goals that year are in the personal realms of their lives. And I think it's really important that as we do all this work for what do we want, that we do turn it and mirror it and say, would this team want to work with me? Or what do I bring to the table? And don't take that negatively. It's also a positive. Am I aware of the value I bring to the table? Am I contributing that? Am I explaining what I want to bring to the table? Am I getting feedback? Is this somebody who'd want to date me? Why would this perfect person want to date me? Why would my children want to act this way? Am I being that presence in their lives? It's very important. It's so easy to set that lens somewhere else. And I think also for those, you know, again, entrepreneurs can be seen as a special breed. So if you are an entrepreneur, maybe the truth is some other people don't want to work with you. And that might be a good thing, right? That might be a really good thing. For those of you on the call who are very performance-based, I know I've had many clients beat themselves up and say, you know, people think my expectations are too high, or people think I want too much, or people think I'm too perfectionist. Their visions are beautiful. They're beautiful. The teams they want to build, the way they impact the communities, their team members, honestly, it's beautiful. There's no other word for it. There's nothing wrong with their expectations. It's wrong because they're not partnering with people of like-minded values, right? So be careful. Am I someone some other people want to work with, and do they want to work with me? And maybe it's a good reason sometimes when we don't, because we need to partner with like-minded people. Right? Very, very key. Don't beat yourself up. Not everybody's the same, and that's okay. You have your wants, your needs, and your gifts for a reason. They're a sign for where you're meant to contribute, right? For sure. And do I currently make others around me better? I really love that one. There's a book, I'm going to forget the name. Oh, I think it is, there's a whole bunch of them. Shoot, I'm forgetting the name of it. Anyway, one of them is Ubuntu, which is like the African principle of, you know, you take care of everyone around you and everyone shows leadership ability. And the other one I'm forgetting right now. But basically the definition of leadership, Rob, so important. We build other leaders. You give away your knowledge, you give away your information, you build other people so that they can help you be strong. We don't get to be leaders without having people who are learning from us and contributing, and vice versa, right? That's that cycle. That's the energy cycle. And April 4th, we're going to talk about energy cycle on an individual basis. Really, really important. What's my contribution? That's exponentially more fulfilling for most people than the profit side of it. That's for sure. So important.
So here, I don't know how it started either. All I know is it's part of our corporate culture. This is where I go back to that our culture is constantly changing. And so often, so much time passes and we don't check in, and we don't really kind of realize what's going on until somebody walks in with a funny hat. So I think it's really, really important, and we're going to go through that in this next part, in taking the time to really gauge your culture and see what's going on around you so you don't get lost.
It's so well, it's not funny. It's for a good reason. It's so interesting that we have this topic today, Rob, really, because I'm reading another Paulo Coelho book. He's my favorite. Love The Alchemist. He has a whole, I'm forgetting all names today, but he has a whole bunch of books that are absolutely phenomenal. Elf is another one, really like interesting out there, but really, really good. But anyway, I'm reading one of his books right now. And they're talking about a situation in a bank where a young lady got a job in the bank, and she came in and she was looking for a way to connect to her soul. She came from a very religious background and looking for a way to connect to her soul. And she found this ancient tradition of dancing. So this ancient tradition, they danced at night until they exhausted themselves, because when they could again separate their working mind from their body and come to a place of clarity, they felt that they could connect again with the joy of life, with gratitude, with all these things. And if you're thinking that sounds out there, same thing as meditation, as prayer, as yoga, same thing. So all these ancient practices are trying to get us to this place of clarity. So the young lady is brought on in the bank, and she starts to do these practices of dancing and decides to change the tradition and to do it in the morning. So her guide, her teacher, her mentor says, you'll be so exhausted. How are you going to do this in the morning? Because you have to dance until exhaustion, right? How are you going to do that? Because you have to be in such a flow that you forget yourself, right? So she decides to do an experiment, and she does the dancing in the morning. You have to do it to exhaustion. And it started to have such an impact that this shy, introverted girl starts to talk to everyone in the bank, and they start to go to lunch, they start to socialize, and she teaches them the tradition. And the bank has this huge exponential increase in productivity. So this story is based on a true story, but it's way back, right? It's more in the 30s or 40s. So the bank owners come to this manager and say, what are you doing? You've increased productivity so much. And the bank owner's going, what do I do? Because they're very corporate. It's based in London, England. And how do I come and explain this? So just like your first cartoon, Rob, he goes to this beautiful conference in Geneva, and he has to speak about this situation. And right away, some of the most stern, other managers says, this is very esoteric. I think you should come with a more objective presentation. I don't think this is fair at a banking conference. And, beautiful, because the story has actually the top, I forget his name, but the director of operations basically for the whole bank actually quiets the other managers and says, let's wait and hear the story. And then said how much he related to it, because when he found that he stopped being so busy and he took some time over the holidays, he didn't know what to do with himself because he was so busy in this culture and this productivity. And all of a sudden, when he slowed down and he remembered the gratitude of why he was doing what he was doing, why he connected with himself, he started to have ideas that actually connected him with people in the bank. So the point of this story is that in the culture, just like your first cartoon, they only wanted what they were already doing. When they wanted to know how the production had increased, they didn't want any new ways, and they didn't want any different ways, and they didn't know why, but they only wanted to keep doing it the same way. So it was actually coming in with something that connected each individual to themselves and increased happiness and fulfillment that increased the bank's profits, which I think is a really important thing when you look at teams, businesses, families. We can look at the numbers, we can look at the metrics, or we can look at how do we invest in ourselves and what does that bring to the overall group. And I think that's I hope you guys see the connection between these two cartoons that were brought up, because we do forget why we're doing it and we defend it because we know it and it's easy. Doesn't mean that it's the best way. Sometimes we have to move things around, right? This is a great indicator of complacency, right, Rob? I would think.
Yeah, 100%.
And I don't even know why anyone would wear those hats. I was like, are these checkerboards on their head or are they hats?
So what is culture? The sum total values, blah, 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 blah. I don't like that definition. Culture is our atmosphere. It's everything around us. It's the way people see us, the way people view us, the way we interact with everybody else. Culture is our interaction. Absolutely every single person that you interact with, your boss, your mother, your clients, and the way they see that interaction, the way that they deal with that interaction. Our actions. I think this one's really important because whether our actions are in our business or they're outside in our personal life, they both affect each parts of our life. So if we're acting like an idiot in our business, people in our real life are going to see that, and vice versa. If you're out there in the real world and you're acting like an idiot in a non-professional way, that sometimes is going to affect the culture that you have within your team and your organization. So I think that's really important when you're dealing with the culture in totality. And more so than not, our thoughts. I put that in there because our culture is our thoughts. What we think of a current situation, any employee in the room that is thinking of a current situation, that is the reality. Whether it is true for you or not, it is true for them and the way that they see the culture. And that's going to compound into how things are dealt with later on as we talk about the way that cultures develop. And
I think often when I think of culture, I think of unspoken rules. sometimes culture is just like air, right? We don't see air. We don't think about the fact that we're breathing, but we are, right? And very important. There was an amazing graduation speech called "This Is Water." If you ever look it up, I think it's David Suzuki. I mean, just fantastic, because it's a great idea of culture. It's everything we do all the time and we don't even think about it. And you know, because people give you a look, or there'll be an energy change, like, oh, this isn't okay here. Okay. Or this is okay here. Oh, we can make crude jokes here. We can swear here. We can, talk to people in a detrimental way. Okay, that's part of your culture here, right? You can pick up on it extremely quickly. Yeah, for sure.
Why it's so easy to become toxic so very quickly.
Yes, because you don't see it. Absolutely.
And I think, why is culture important? I think we've talked about that. I think it deals with absolutely everything. And that leads straight into that. I think that your culture can become very toxic very, very quickly if you're not on top of it and you're not gauging it on a consistent basis. And trust in me when I tell you, if your culture gets toxic enough, whether it's 1 month or a year and a half from now, it can destroy your business and completely ruin it. How do we go about gauging our culture? I think it's really, really important to, like I said, check in at least once a year. I often tell people 2 or 3 times a year at bare minimum. And there's different ways to do it. You can send surveys out to your employees, out to your clients. It's a very easy thing. It's something that people actually do on a consistent basis. And people have no problem doing that if you pose it in a way of saying, like, we're trying to make our business better, we're trying to serve you better, and things like that. The other way is to have meetings with your clients or the people in your circle, in your team, and check your ego aside and listen to what people have to say. I think this is really, really important when it comes down to the overall effect and the end result. You want to give people in your company a voice. It is very, very important for people in relationships, for people in business, to have a voice. They want to be heard. It's one of the number one things that we talk about in the business world, in families and relationships. You want to be heard. So by doing these things, when you're gauging your culture, at the very end of it, if you decide that there has to be a big change to take place, you eliminate the excuses. You've given the people their voice. They've been able to say what they need to say, so they can't have that excuse to hold them back.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's back to Joe Hardy's window for those of us those of you who joined us on that core belief. Really, it's very important to give out as much information as you take back in. And that's difficult for every personality type, because some like to give, some like to get feedback. All of us, it's hard to gauge. I remember as a coach a few years ago, the first time I ever actually asked, I know this sounds absurd, but it was the first time I ever actually asked my clients for feedback. What would you want me to do differently? Because my positioning as a coach was always directing, right? Directing what we were doing next, what our targets were, what are we doing in the second quarter? Because I wanted to make sure we had a very strong structure and we were getting results, which we did. By no means, we absolutely did. But did I learn more about adjusting to individual agents or individual clients of mine who are agents? Absolutely. Hands down. I absolutely learned more. And I think it's a great reminder that an elevated culture, a culture who is very healthy and who's had time, a culture that's very healthy has done its storming. That's not our topic today, but it's done its storming. It's come back together. It's got a stronger footing. Those cultures are able to put their ego aside more because they know they're in a trusting, safe environment. And that's really important. You can't expect people to not be defensive when they get feedback if they're in a culture that attacks them or criticizes them or judges them. A culture that's open and you can put your ego aside and actually take in feedback thoughtfully without responding would be my biggest advice. Take in feedback without responding. Take 24 hours, take 48 hours if you need to, and really allow yourself to separate your emotions from what the feedback might be. I can tell you that's $1 billion advice right there, because a lot of relationships in businesses and teams have been ruined because somebody actually was trying to help and give honest feedback and somebody took it the wrong way. And they weren't secure enough with themselves to take that in, which isn't necessarily culture. It could be an individual, but a lot of the times cultures can be really critical of each other. And I think it's important. You want people to take feedback and act on it, you need to build a safe harbor, which is your bubble, your team, your culture, right? Absolutely.
And I think this question, what or who determines the culture of a business or a team? I thought that this was a very straightforward thing. And then the very first time I had coached a business, I asked this in a business meeting, and the overwhelming result was management or the leaders. They're the ones who determine kind of the way we act and what we say and what we do. And I thought maybe I had just kind of come up short with the first people that I was with, and the more and more people that I spoke to and dealt with, this was often the result. Is people often thought that it was leadership, it was management, it was the people that set the rules, made the rules, that determined what the culture was. And in families, it's people think that mom and dad are the ones that set the culture of your family, and that's not true.
No.
The totality of everything, each and every single person, from the very, very bottom to the very, very top, are what create the culture. I often say to people, management and leadership, all they do is influence the culture. Everybody else kind of determines what that culture is. They're the ones that are constantly out there. They're the ones that are interacting with each other on a regular basis. So you're the ones that build that culture. You have that influence to make it positive or negative. And I think that that's important.
That 80% rule. And I think that's why it's just as important. Sometimes it's a great thing to bring up, that we can be on a team and have somebody who maybe isn't having a strong mindset that particular month, or they're in a victim mode, or they're having a hard time, they're struggling. First of all, a great team tries to build each other up, and they're honest, and they hold each other accountable. If you really want to be a leader, you want people around you, at least I do, who are going to call me on things when they need to be called. And sometimes they do, right? Andy, there's been times where he said to me, is there anything you can do about it? No? Then, because he knew if I faced it, I said, you're right, there's nothing I can do about it. So as much as it's upsetting me, I'm not going to focus on it anymore because there's nothing I can do. So having the people around you who call you on things are important. But if it gets worse and worse, I think it's really important. Somebody who's on a team who's negative, who's belittling the team, you're influencing not just your mindset, you're 100% influencing everyone else on the team. And it will tear the team apart slowly, because everything is a momentum up, a momentum down, or a momentum level, right? So I don't think it's by any means, I mean, poor leadership, of course, can be an issue, but also leadership allowing something to continue that's unhealthy for the majority is a major problem too. I know a lot of teams that are very self-regulated. They've been there a long time. Some of them, their leadership has changed. So they really are that governing body. And when they see people come in and it's eating away at their culture, they won't have it, because their success comes from that environment. It protects them from the outside culture of the average or the norm, which they don't want to be part of, right? So you need to protect your fishbowl. Fishbowls can be a pretty good thing when you're trying to make an impact, that's for sure.
So 2 or 3 times a year at least, ask yourself, what is your culture? And like I said, go upon the right way in engaging what that is. And think to yourself, what is your ideal culture? Is it the same as what I'm gauging, or is it different? Do I need to make a change? Is there change happening that is better for me, or is it going down a rotten road?
Yeah.
Culture is something that is usually built up over time. When it's successful and it's great and it's wonderful, we have a huge strength in building blocks, and we have more strengths than we do weaknesses. And that's why we're at a level of greatness, of success. But all it takes is one little kind of slip in the road to really start crashing you down and crashing you down in a hurry. So be on top of it. Don't let that happen, and ask yourself those 2 very important questions. If you decide that change is something that's imminent, ask yourself right in the very beginning, what challenges are we going to face in order to get to this desired culture? That's going to be gauging things like who's toxic, what is toxic, am I going to have to get rid of people? Am I going to have to bring new people in? Am I going to have to change the way we do our business? Every obstacle that you can think of, take it, write it down, and see. It'll give you a clear picture of where you want to get headed.
Yeah, very, very important. And I think that mirror conversation is crucial here too, about what can make a team toxic or how to turn it around. And that's, do I have a compelling vision? Is it more than just sales? And again, I don't think it's by accident that, you know, I've always gravitated to top performers. I've always been an idealist. I've always been accused of it from probably birth. And I love to challenge what's possible. That I really don't think it's by accident that the top achievers in our industry, as we switch to this wisdom industry, as we switch to consultants, our wisdom era, as we switch to a consultant's approach, I don't think it's by accident that those leaders are guiding with massive visions that people are excited about, that are more than just sales. We have enough salespeople. We don't need any more salespeople. Salespeople learn a skill or a system and they become bored because it becomes habit, and then they just stop. That mastery isn't the same. People who are approaching culture as artists, right? That art of how do I bring something of mastery, something beautiful, something that I'm so good at, that it's as if I was a singer or an artist doing, you know, Picasso. How did I bring that into my work? Those cultures of mastery and excellence that can combine systems. I used to say it's like they took Ford's beautiful vision and they attached mastery to it. So instead of having, you know, that pyramid where Ford was up here, right, with the plants, and the systems said, the systems are our values. The independent workers, they're replaceable. The turnover in Ford plants, when you learn about it, was at the original time of the assembly line, were phenomenal because they were during the Depression. They had tons of labor. They could bring people in again and again. You don't like our rules. You're not running the machine properly. We'll just replace you. There's a lineup of other people. But in this era of wisdom, we have such a beautiful opportunity to combine these two ideals and say, how do we get somebody who is a master, who is an art, just at that one piece of the assembly that they love so much? How do we combine all of those people and have the system and the engineers to be just as equally as important as the people who are out there, you know, building and engaging in each level of the process? And to me, like that's the most exciting thing of the wisdom era. It's this transition to true mastery and artistry. And I don't think anything for me excites me or makes me more passionate about culture in the real estate world than seeing that transition happening. And we absolutely are. There are artists in this industry who, when you see them with clients, when you see them with a presentation that maybe hundreds of other people knew, but you watch them in awe because it's part of their essence. Those people don't quit using systems. They are systems. It's part of who they are. So I don't know, I took you on a tangent, Rob, but I thought it was kind of important at the time. That's just what I do.
Lastly, what makes a team culture toxic? I think we can all come up with 1,000 different reasons, but two of the ones that I like to just touch upon real quickly that I think are uncommon that people don't always realize is, if you're in a leadership role, any kind of leadership role, and you don't deal with toxic things, you're actually toxic yourself. So be sure that you're getting on top of that and you're dealing with it in a good way to show everybody that, you know, you're headed in the right direction. And the other thing that I like to bring up all the time is because it's probably the fastest and quickest way to really poison an environment. And that's simply, like I said before, about being self-aware and taking care of yourself. So if Kathleen and I meet today for lunch and I tell Kathleen all about how miserable my day was and how so-and-so stabbed me in the back and all my life's problems and all that kind of good stuff, Kathleen can either respond by saying, you know, that's good, sorry, and move on, or she can agree with me like the good friend that she is, and, you know, we'll have our bitch session back and forth. And then tomorrow when Kathleen meets somebody else for lunch, she's going to go on and on about how so-and-so stabbed me in the back, and then it just spreads like wildfire. So if you can eliminate those types of conversations from your kind of vocabulary in the way that you do things, you'll really have a stronger way of moving forward.
Yes, absolutely. Enablement, not communicating, still communicating. Yeah, for sure.
So when you decide that you're going to implement some sort of cultural change, whether it's small or big, there's three major steps that I always tell people to relate back to. You need to reach a consensus. So you have to have It can't just be you alone that decides that, you know what, we're going to implement this cultural change. We're going to change the environment of our business. It's never going to happen. You have to have a consensus on what that current culture looks like and where you're headed. You need to acknowledge and understand how you got there. What is it that's happening that made us get to the point that we're at? And this, again, is where I say, put your ego aside. It's not going to do you any good here. Yeah. You need to receive the information. That's right. You need to receive that information and just let it be, because it is what it is at this point. Mm-hmm. You need to reach a consensus on the desired future culture. And I always go back to visions, mission statements, beliefs, values, those parts of your business. If you don't have those, then you're probably in trouble already. But if you don't, then get there. Get the vision, the mission statement, your values and your belief, and work your desired culture around those things that make you congruent inside.
Yeah. And we will in the future in core belief be working on that. And if you're, again, not a team at work, you're a family, it will apply to any team environment. Maybe you're a sports team coach, right? We will be working on vision, mission statements, and values. Absolutely.
Yes. And the third part is determine what the changes will and will not mean. That simply just means, how is it going to affect absolutely everyone? Mm-hmm. Is it going to be in a positive way, a negative way? Is there ways around it? What does this actually look like, and what does it actually mean? Mm-hmm. Now, the most important part when you're going to do a cultural change, you must absolutely get a complete buy-in from every last person. If there's one poisonous part of that spectrum, it's never going to work. So I always say, you're going to get on board or we're throwing you off. You're going to come along for the ride or you're not. Yeah. We need a complete buy-in in order to move on, in order to successfully change.
Mm-hmm. You need a commitment.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think with culture, and I know we're definitely at the end, coming to the end of our time, but I think culture can be complicated. It can be complicated to teach. It can be complicated to talk about, complicated to establish, because again, it's that invisible entity that's more powerful than anything else around us in team environments that we can't necessarily easily describe or communicate about. So I find some team members, team leaders really shy away from the topic, and it couldn't be more detrimental. Right? I do agree you need an established team. Some of my clients have definitely reached out because they felt, at our team summit last year, Ultimate Team Summit, we had a huge population of top achieving teams attend. And it was amazing because a lot of the top teams cited understanding their vision, their mission, their values as what allowed them to get to the next step. But the part that was hard is you had a lot of people in the audience saying, well, okay, we need this. You do, but you need to form and storm and at least have a team or organization in order to establish those things. You're not ready until you have at least your first level foundation in place. It's premature. So I find I plant the seeds with my clients. We'll plant the seeds here like we are today. And then we'll move towards layering and layering, because if we don't have a context, right, a box in which to talk about culture, it can seem very abstract and people can get frustrated. And I understand that. So we're planting the seeds of that to make sure it's actually something valuable for you later on, which is vital.
When adding to your culture, ask yourself, how does it affect everyone in the company? So to the administrative people, right to you yourself as a leader. Yeah. As a company, are we willing to hire, promote, fire based on the changes that we're making? I think that's self-explanatory, but really important. Holding you true to who you are and what you believe in.
Yeah. That's a point, just everyone listening again, really important. Are you willing to hire, promote, and fire based on those values and that culture? This is so core. People look to recruit, they get desperate, they bring somebody on, it doesn't work out, that person's pushed out of the environment very quickly, and they're frustrated. Was it the recruitment system? Is it the team concept? No, it's not having an established culture, and it's not being proactive enough to bring the right people on. You failed before you even got into the playing field, right?
I think it's really important as a leader or people who are going through the change. Can you clearly live the change in good times and in bad, and more so in the bad? Can you stay congruent to those values, to those changes, when crap is hitting the fan, essentially, when things aren't going well? Can you stay there? Can you be in that moment with that change? And does this conflict with anything else that's already in place? That just simply means, do you have any rules, regulations, bylaws, any of those types of things that this is really going to mess up and cause a storm ahead for you? So make sure everything is just very congruent. Absolutely. I always tell people, remember that mistakes happen. Admitting and acknowledging the mistakes and allowing you to learn from them doesn't mean that you have a toxic culture. It just means that we have human beings and that we're going to make mistakes. That's okay. When you consistently start to screw up and you're not making the commitment, that word that we all hate, commitment, when you're not making that, then you might become part of a toxic part of that environment. But if you're just making a mistake here and there, that's what we want, because we want you to learn to get better and learn to succeed. So don't really kind of fall into that mistake of, now we've talked about this, you messed up or you made a mistake, everyone's going to think I'm poisonous. That's not really what we're going at.
Yeah, show them I always say I have an instant bounce back rate. I may fail, I may do something wrong. You may think I'm out of the game, but you're going to be shocked, because I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to come back. And that shocks people more than anything, right? Be an example of it. Hey, yeah, I made a mistake. Let's move on, for sure. So effective way to change. And we're wrapping up, I think, shortly.
Yeah. So effective ways to change, we've talked about it during this and every other call. A positive mindset. You have to stay in a positive mindset in order to get change. Success is derived from change, so be positive. Communication is installed in absolutely everything we do. You have to have it from both sides. You have to be willing to learn and listen. Acceptance, you have to really realize when you're going through excuse me, a change process, that you didn't get there on your own and you didn't fall to the bad on your own. So we really have to have that acceptance. Yes, we as a team got to our success, and yes, we as a team kind of fell to the wayside and kind of got off the rails a little bit. Let's kind of get back.
Yeah.
When you're looking to do a cultural change, build on your strengths. Don't rip the house down and start all over. You have success already. You've been there. You're great people. You're great teams. You're great organizations. Take your strengths, get rid of some of the weaknesses, and just build from there to get to where you want to go.
And resist the urge sometimes that to rip down and build new can seem exciting. It can seem sexy, right? It can seem engaging, and everybody wants to engage in that. And that's beautiful. We all want our business to have that, that charisma, right? And I think it's important, but the best people in the game never got there. They may have had charisma. They may have loved what they do. I mean, I love what I do, but when people find out the amount of hours and the amount of work over the years to get good at scripts, to get good at a presentation, look at the best people in sports. What defines them isn't because they were more passionate, excited, they could give a better talk about what they did. It was the hours, the commitment to being great at their craft. So it's not always as sexy, right? Don't be afraid to strengthen the core, simple things that make your business work and just be stunningly successful at them. Really important. Build on what's already good and control the most controllable thing. I love that, Rob. It's always us. There's very little else we can control usually. So it's definitely always us. That is really important. And culture, I'm just going to see, okay, we're here. So I'll let you take us through these, Rob.
So like any other goal kind of that we set, especially when it comes to culture, we focus on the goal. And the way I explain that is, if our goal is, if our cultural change is at the top of a mountain, the change process and getting to that goal or getting to that change is the hardest part. We're going up the side of a mountain. So often we forget that there's the other side of the mountain. We have to come down in order to complete the process. And we forget about that a lot of times because we're so focused on just getting to the change, getting to where we need to go, that we don't complete it. So really stay focused on the fact that you do have to complete the process. It goes on after you get there. So I say management has to, they have to stick to their guns. And that's probably one of the most important things.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I won't even get into that one because there's like really 100 million different examples of culture knows when management isn't going to stick to their guns, and they'll push you and push you and push you. And guess what? It's a gift, because they're going to push you so far that you figure out where your limit is. And usually it's not going to be pretty. It's not at all. And you can say it doesn't work, but really we have to all look at ourselves and our boundaries and what we're setting for ourselves in good and in bad. And I think most people want a trusting, consistent, safe environment where they can trust. I mean, the biggest feedback I get for people with leadership is they gravitate to people who are consistent, who they know are going to make consistent decisions. They can trust the way that they're going to approach something and perform. They see that they're unwavering, right? No matter how big the waves are, no matter how strong the wind is, no matter how difficult, they're unwavering in their principles and their commitments to the culture, to those positive restrictions, shall we say. So love your quote here, that's for sure.
Yeah, the former CEO of IBM, Lou Gertzner, says, I come to see in my time at IBM that culture isn't just one aspect of the game, it is the game.
It is.
And I couldn't agree more. It's why I tell people constantly check in. Don't allow yourself to be caught by the storm. Really stay on top of it. Really stay on top by acknowledging the great things that are going on within your company, and work as a collective whole in bettering that culture each and every single day that you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have another Awaken Your Potential coming up April 8th and 9th. I know we already have quite a few people registered to attend. Some people, because there was not a Awaken Your Potential weekend training, in March. And here's a testimonial from Shannon McCaffrey. She is a fantastic superstar team that serves Kingston, Napanee, or Nepean, not Napanee. Yes, not Nepean, and surrounding areas. So we had 6 agents from our team attend, and each one loved every minute of this transformational weekend. We gained so much invaluable knowledge, amazing goals were set, and a level of personal peace and awareness was received by all of us. I would highly recommend this event. So this is for leadership communication for the whole team. So again, if you're trying to speak the same language and move forward together, I highly recommend. We have a lot of teams that attend this weekend together, or 2 or 3 members attend together. I know Andy and myself went together at the same time. Some of our current coaches, Rob, you went a separate month because of logistics. But really important, it is only $247 for the whole weekend, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and you can register right on our website. So www.kathleenspeaks.com, and you go to events. You can register and choose any of the upcoming dates. And again, it is just $247 for that whole weekend. And it introduces you to actually getting certified as an NLP practitioner, if that would serve you as a team leader, team member, serve your clients. And several of the people who attended actually are taking that next step. So at this point, I am going to thank Rob for co-hosting with me. Thank you. Wonderful co-host. I'll thank myself for being a fantastic co-host. We talked about ego, right? So a lot of fun today. And April 4th, 2 weeks from now, it's our last live core beliefs session. And I am super excited about it because it's going to be all about energy, flow, and alignment. I've had a lot of awareness over the last year that what I really do with clients, with teams, whether it's individuals or again, 5, 20, 25 people, is help people at an organizational level or an individual level come into alignment with their core pursuits, their core purposes. I just so happen to apply it in real estate, as does the rest of the coaches with Kathleen Black Coaching and Consulting. But core pursuit is bringing that awareness of what we really do to the world, to other leaders, because I think we all need it. It inspires me. It energizes me. I thank all of you for participating in it and for spreading it and maybe putting some of these things into practice in your families, in your organization, in your sports teams. So don't forget, April 4th, 1 o'clock, all about energy flow. It's going to be the most impactful content I've brought to this forum. Rob's brought some amazing stuff, but this is going to be something that I'm bringing forward. So really excited. Thank you, Rob. We'll all see you April 4th. Take care.
Take care, guys.